I will live my life as though generations depend on me. And I will teach and encourage all of mine to do the same. Silverback! Silverback!
And I say this in my 26 years, this is the first program that I've seen an immediate impact, especially with boys.
Hello, I'm Norman Robinson, and welcome to this special edition of the Silverback Society show, reminding you, in the words of the great Frederick Douglass, that it is easier to build strong boys than it is to fix broken men. This edition is special because the executive director, Lloyd Dennis, is joining us with some encouraging news from the New Orleans City Council. Welcome, Lloyd. I understand you have some encouraging news from the New Orleans City Council members.
Well, I feel like we were really well received. We ended up in a financial situation, where we needed more public support. And so one of the council staff members offered, and Jason Williams agreed to schedule us to be on the council that day. So to familiarize the council with who we were and what we did. But it seems that most of them already knew who we were and what we did. It was really, really a great opportunity to let those people know who we are and to let them know that down the road we need some support from the city.
And when you say down the road, what do you mean specifically?
Well, when it's time to do the budget.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't a hearing associated with the budget. This was just an opportunity for us to make sure that they knew who we were, what we do, and kind of who was involved. And it was really encouraging because by the time we got to the meat of the presentation, we had like 20 of our guys show up, and to me that was special.
Well, I get asked this question all the time. You know, you guys do great work, but how are you funded?
It seems that most of the funding found us. The Kellogg Foundation found us when we were just doing it as volunteers and told us that they wanted to support the work so that we could expand. And so at that time, we were only doing 2 schools. And so now we're doing 17 schools. Worked with 650 boys last year, 130 men. And so that's how we were able to do that. We have another grant from the Institute of Mental Hygiene. We've gotten some Wisner grant money from the city, small amounts, but we've gotten that. And board members, people in the public support what we do. So it's a kind of a smorgasbord, but our main funders at this time are Kellogg and the Institute of Mental Hygiene.
So no doubt you're expanding your reach, and as you're expanding your reach, you need to expand your funding. Well,
because we've reached the point where this is something that is too big for just me to run. At this point, I'm the only staff, and I'm getting older, and the program needs to be independent of having, they say one monkey don't stop no show, but it might if something happens to me right now. So we got to bring some young talent on board, got to develop a small, I like mean and lean staff, but that's going to take more money. And so that makes this, we ended up in a very critical situation because of not having enough what's called public support money. Kellogg literally cut us by $100,000 over the next 2 years.
Wow, that's a big chunk of change.
Especially when you're at the point where you know that you need to grow. So that kind of lit a fire under us and made this presentation and making sure the city government knew who we were and how our work was going to affect the city.
Looking down the road, how do you expect to meet this funding challenge?
Well, we can get some funding from the city council. We went to 3 of the charter organizations where we do work with their schools. They stepped up. We're in line we have an interview with Ganoff for an impact grant. Like I said, the city came through with a little money. The mayor through the Wisner Fund. In general, we have people who are willing to support us. Entity's been a big supporter with some in-kind stuff, and we're going to make it. We're going to make it. We've been approached by Baptist Community Ministries to submit, and so we're going to a meeting Tuesday same day the show is on. That's going to help us figure out if that's going to work for us.
So we're kind of branching out to the extent that we're learning as we go. Is that?
It's a learning curve. But you know, I never wanted to do a nonprofit. I was happy doing a couple of schools as volunteers, but we were challenged to grow. And once challenged, I understood how important it would be to be in every school, make sure every boy in the city gets trained in the ways of capable, responsible manhood.
So we've got something that's working here, and we want to keep it working.
Keep it working and make it grow.
Thank you, Lloyd. In view of the fact that this was our first introduction to the New Orleans City Council, we thought we would share our presentation with you. Take a look.
We're here because we find ourselves at a tipping point, and literally and figuratively. We lost, over the next 2 years, we lost $100,000 of funding from our major foundation, Kellogg Foundation, because what they told us is that we were in danger of tipping. In other words, we did not have enough public support to continue to be defined as a public charity, even though we had done some fundraising. We had raised money, but we did not know that money that we raised from individuals did not count, all of it didn't count as public support. So we found ourselves in this situation, and we're actually here making a presentation that hopes that we can find a way to be included in the budget, so to provide some public support for the work that we do. We've been doing this since 2007. I taught for 3 years at Rob Wayne High School, and what we've discovered is that young people will learn anything they want to. And so striving to achieve academics is the problem. The schools are taking a lot of beating for the fact that some children do not learn. But the fact is that children who don't make a connection between learning in the classroom and a positive lifestyle that they would desire really don't see a reason to learn. Little boys think high school is a social activity. They really don't understand the gravity of it. So the study, we've all heard this, 52% black male unemployment in New Orleans. But if you dig down deeply into that, you'll find that since 1980, post-secondary pursuit by black males has stagnated at 15%. And at this time, 66% of white males have post-secondary training or education, and it's still only 15% of black males who do that. So part of the problem is that we have young men who finish high school basically not prepared to do anything else. They may get a diploma, but it's only worth the paper because they didn't know that 9th grade was where you had to start becoming a man. So this is an interesting piece here, is that after slavery, after the turmoil and difficulties of slavery, 78% of African Americans consider themselves married. And when you fast forward to 1998, only 40% of African American adults were married. And several things happened in between that. The mechanization of agriculture that drove people to the city. And in the city, those skills, those high-level agricultural skills were useless. Jim Crow and the scarcity of living wage jobs for black men. I have to remind people sometimes that a black man couldn't ride a garbage truck when I was a kid. Government assistance only for man-absent homes. In other words, the government came with a program that would support women and children, but men had to be out the house. And then the post-civil rights migration of capable houses that had capable, responsible fathers could afford to move out of the old neighborhoods. And what got left behind is parts of the city now, you can drive 6, 7 blocks and not find a house where a man is providing resources for the family. And the problem with that is it created a culture. So the little boys that grew up in those situations don't even understand that they are supposed to become something. And that's the problem. It's about striving. So boys who don't have a connection with men who are happy with themselves because of what they can do for their family and community don't even understand that. And so they don't strive. They go to school, they think it's a joke, it's a time to have fun, get with the girls, go to dances and parties because they got a little more freedom now. But they really don't understand that it's about getting yourself in a position where when you finish high school, you can do it. The problems that we have in our community, I always like to refer people to the book Lord of the Flies. And consider Lord of the Flies with 9mm. And that's kind of what we have, is little male children trying to figure out how to ascend to alpha malehood, which we all want to do, without the leadership and guidance of men who have done so in a responsible way. So what we do in the Silverback Society is we provide boys right at that cusp of manhood with exposure to and teaching from men who have done it. Some of those men are assembled behind me. There are 130 in your packets. I've given you the names. So it's 128 on that list. And we were in 17 schools this year. We'll be in 19 schools next year. This year we worked with 465 boys. The point of that is that our mentoring solution is not a pipe dream. It is doable, it is scalable, and we're going to do it. Our plan is to be in every school in 2 or 3 years. That way, every little boy entering 9th grade in high school will have the Silverback training, will belong to the same peer group that believes in the future, has hope. And the benefits of that are, quite frankly, we believe that if we do this for 12, 15 years, we'll be able to quit. Because then the children entering the school system will have had our boys as fathers. I believe that. I can see that. Because all that's wrong with the little boys is they just don't know that you can be you can get your swag on till you're 60-something. I'd still have my swag. When you get your swag from what you do for people rather than what you do to people. Because the kids are trying to get their respect based on what they can do to people. That's our logic model. I'm not going to go through it now, but it's provided in your packet. We have thought this out. This is not something that we just pulled out the air. We have thought this out. We have brought experience to bear. Men who spend time with children make a difference for the boys, but not only that. We also have a plan in the future to start addressing girls, where we're going to expose them to married people, because some little girls have no exposure at all to anybody who is happily married and made that work. So that's the logic model. And these are the Silverback ways of the world, which I think this is just what we teach the boys about how to make the world treat you better, how to get more out of life, enjoy your life. And then finally, our plan is to engage a whole generation.
We pause now for a short break.
So the Silverback Society,
it's going to change the entire dynamic
of young people, but also
it's just going to change the entire dynamics of the environment that we live in and the world.
As it relates to what is happening in education.
I think the mentoring program is a success and that more states should incorporate the Silverback Society formula.
It's a space where folks who have been disconnected from the system are able to plug back in and like seed into the lives of young people.
But the knowledge and experience was given to me by my elders, and I need to pass that on.
And then they become attached to the school that they work at, the faculty. They become a face that's recognized, that's loved.
I'm very proud to be part of the organization.
As a younger black man, it is stuff like this that shows me which path I need to go down, and I'm just proud to be a part of the Silverback Society.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Dennis. I'm here on behalf of the hundreds of little 8th grade boys that the Silverback Society has touched, specifically at Fannie C. Williams. And if you could feel the impact of these brothers standing behind me, just imagine that walking through the halls of a K-8 school and the impact that they have on the boys and girls. When Silverback Society came to Fannie C. Williams 2 years ago, I said, oh, you know, another mentor group, they'll come, they'll spend a little time. But little did I know that they joined our team and really worked tirelessly to provide the boys with the equipment and the training that they need to become the next generation of men.
Well, when these gentlemen step into a school, they change the culture of the young males in that school. The incidences of discipline go down. the young men become leaders in the school building, and they literally overhaul the attitudes of the young men in that building throughout the course of the year, to where they become not only examples, but academic leaders in their school, which I'm sure Ms. Baptiste can attest to. Now, unfortunately, while we do all this work for free, all with the exception of Lloyd, he is our only paid staff person, it becomes necessary to raise money to be able to expand our impact. And this is only about impact. We have seen it happen.
I would like to just give a quick analogy. You have jugglers that try and keep balls in the air. Well, if they're juggling a rubber ball, well, if they drop that rubber ball, it could bounce, come back into play, and be right back in the rotation, and there's not a large impact to dropping that rubber ball. But if you think about a finely crafted crystal ball, a Waterford crystal ball, that juggler could not allow that crystal ball to hit the ground. It'll break into a million pieces. It's a very unique and delicate situation that you're dealing with. And that's what the Silverbacks are all about. We are trying to keep the balls in the air, lead these young men with manhood training, that the funds that might be contributed in a small way to the Silverbacks today can save in the future in the justice systems, the police force, other things. I am confident that the things that we're doing, that of the thousands of young men that have already been touched and the almost 600 that will be touched this coming year, there are certain things that we're providing in that manhood training that will prevent them from adding to your future justice budgets that you have to deal with.
I don't have a whole lot to add, except that this is an entirely unique organization. I don't know of any organization anywhere where they're all basically volunteers doing it without pay. They get their pay, if you will, they call it that, the satisfaction of seeing kids change. And it's welcome for the schools. It's a win-win situation for everybody. The schools ask for Silverbacks to come in and work with their kids. And they see the difference, the way the kids operate. They change over time. And that spreads throughout the system, where they get to know what's going on. So the volunteers get satisfaction, they get pay, if you will. The school people get different kids in their schools. And so it's a win-win situation for everybody.
The tipping point for us, the second tipping point, is that I'm 65 years old. I have friends that I'm going to funerals every week, and I'm not saying that, but the point is that this work is too important to depend on just me. So at this point in our history where I need to grow and develop staff, it's kind of when we have this critical funding need. Before we finish, we got all these gentlemen standing behind. And one of the things we do, and every time we are with the boys, we say our pledge. And so I'm going to ask the men if they wouldn't mind. Can we say our pledge? Yes, sir. On three. 1, 2, 3.
I will live my life as though generations depend on me, and I will teach and encourage all of mine to do the same. Silverbacks.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. That was extremely moving, and I can tell you that I can speak for myself and say that you've earned my respect and my support with the hard work and sacrifices you have made. But several other council members want to weigh in. Councilmember Henry.
We have a full agenda and time-sensitive matters, so I'll be incredibly brief. I'd love to have your PowerPoint. If you could send it to all the council members, that would be amazing, as well as the best contact information. And also to us specifically, other than the government funding, which you've made very clear is a need, the amount. Also, what other needs do you have to be able to grow and continue your program, whether it's additional volunteers,
Space.
whether it's space, whatever. Please put that to us so that we can start using some of our connections and some of our knowledge to maybe make that happen. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cantrell.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. You know, Silverbacks are the talk of the city. Seriously. The work that you're doing is second to none as in regards to mentoring our young boys throughout the city of New Orleans. Just preparing for the meeting this morning, I got I don't know how many text messages from other mentors that could not be here this morning. And one was from your magistrate court judge, Harry Cantrell, who is my father-in-law, and as well as Darren Lombard as well. Please support the Silverbacks. It's no question that the support not only is needed, but understand you have it from the council. I wanted to ask, though, what funding have you received, any funding from the city at this point, whether it's through the Wisner grant? Can you speak just a little bit about that?
So we don't, our age group doesn't fit in the NOLA for Life. No, I think NOLA for Life is like 16 and above.
Okay.
And so we work with boys in 8th grade. And so our kids don't fit that. We have received like a $10,000 Wisner grant. Matter of fact, I was supposed to bring my paperwork today. But what you have to understand is that's considered private funding because it's from Wisner. And Wisner is a private foundation. Mm-hmm. It's just the city manages it. So our specific need is public money.
Well, I'll do all that I can to support, as I indicated earlier. And thank you so much for all that you all are doing for our families. Not just those men, they're tied to families. And we need all the support that we can get. Thank you.
Councilmember Gray.
Of course, we're going to be supportive. And I only have one complaint. I keep voicing it over and over, and no one listens. Go back and read that Tulane report and see what it said about the percentage of black men working. It did not say 52% of black men do not work in this city. Mm-hmm. It said 52% of black men were underemployed. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big point because little boys ought to know that the norm is, even in the craziness that we have right now, the norm is that most black men in this city get up and go try to make a living and try to take care of their family.
Right.
And I think part of the teaching is to develop norms, and when the norms are good, to let kids see that the normal kid in this city does not get in trouble. The normal kid in this city does go to school. The normal kid in this city does do what he's supposed to do. Now, our success is not what it ought to be. We need you, and we thank you for what you are doing to improve that. And I will be with you 100%. Thank you.
Thank you,
Councilmember Brissett.
Thank you, Council Vice President and Lloyd, and to many of you who I know from Sawney to Matthews to St. Julian to Eugene Green. Thank you for all your hard work. Volker in the back. You have contributed a lot to this community and touched the lives of many children, making boys into men. And I thank you, Lloyd, for the opportunity to speak. And definitely will come back when I spoke at the Zulu Club some time ago to the young men. But it's important that we enshrine the values of what many of us in this room were raised by our parents about the pathways to success, determination, and discipline. And so I thank you for all of your volunteer hours, because I know a lot of you are into other things and trying to make this city a better place. And so same here, I'll be sending something your way. Thank you.
Councilmember Guidry.
Thank you. Good morning, and I just really want to express my sincere gratitude to all of you who are out there mentoring these children and changing their lives. I hope it's as gratifying for you as it is life-changing for them. The mentoring programs, I think, are the most important programs that we have in this city. And so I just want to thank you all again, and also thank you for thinking in terms of creating a mentoring arm of your organization for girls too, because they really need guidance, and they so often are not getting good guidance. So thank you very much for considering that too, and I look forward to seeing that emerge.
Thank you, Councilmember Guidry. Lloyd, Principal Batiste, my best to Joe. Gentlemen, you all are filling a void that has been created over several generations. And I know, I'm looking at the men behind you, the men that stand behind you are exceptional in their own right, individual in the community, and I can tell you from the ones I know, they're very busy.
We call them top shelf.
Exactly, they are top, that's a good way to describe them. And so for them to be making this sacrifice, in addition to all the other things they're doing in their lives, means something. And I know these young men see it. And like Councilmember Cantrell said, there's a lot more men standing behind you in spirit that just can't be here today because of those commitments, who have called, who have sent emails, who have texted. And I believe that we have to do everything we can to get this in every school, because we can save money on our criminal justice dollars. All the things that we're dumping in hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're asking for 50. I mean, this is smart. I think the Koch brothers would support this because it's fiscally sound.
You'd be surprised.
And I just want to thank you for putting a system in place that will outlive you, that will outlive me, but I know the system that you put together is one that can work all of the mentors out of a job, because you're creating new silverbacks who will do it in their own lives, so that void will no longer exist in our community. So thank you for this. Know that we will leverage all the support that you see here on the council throughout this building and throughout this city, so we can get you the funds you need so you can help our children.
Thank you for joining us for the Silverback Society show, Raising and Mentoring Boys Without Fathers. The show airs every Tuesday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. As always, we leave you with our motto, as inspired by the great legendary abolitionist Frederick Douglass: it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Until next time, I will live my life as though generations depend upon me, and I will teach and encourage all of mine to do the same. Silverback.